All right, what's going on? What's going on? Welcome everybody to another episode of Public Comments. Today is actually not Friday. It's better. Today is Sunday. What's good, Jordan? How you doing, bro? How's your weekend going?
What's goody? I'm feeling good, bro. I'm feeling blessed. I freaking poked my eye on a plant, but we're doing good, man. It was a good week. How was your week, Wando?
Man, it was good. I didn't poke my eye. So that's good. I can still see clearly. I can still see clearly. I like how we're both rocking jerseys today. I'm rocking Kobe Mamba jersey, Avalanche, because they're supposedly that's what I hear supposed to win
We're
the
taking home the cup tonight.
that's what they say. I don't know. I might have to jump on FanDuel and bet against them.
Oh my gosh, bro. No. You're gonna lose your money, bro. You're gonna lose your money. We're taking the cup home tonight. Putting that out there.
All right, we'll have to see. Anybody, if anybody's a hockey fan listening or watching, let's see we can play some bets over here. But good man, I'm really excited actually for today's conversation. Because it's one that I think is overdue, first of all, because we have some very, very special guests. And it's cool because we've never had more than one guest on here. So we got two special guests. You want to introduce our first guest?
Of course, I would love to. Guys, we have today, as mentioned many times previously on the podcast, my girlfriend Angie. Honestly, like I'm super biased. My perspective on it. I love this girl. I adore this girl. Been with her for what, like almost 3 years now, babe. And it's been an amazing ride. We've been able to grow a lot together. We've been able to travel all over the world together. We do business together. We trade together. So it's been awesome. And I'm super excited to hear her perspective as well. She's very intelligent, very opinionated. She keeps me in check. So I think she's going to bring a lot of good perspective and good energy to this podcast today.
Let's go. I'm excited. Yeah, I've been knowing Angie for quite a while. She's all right, I guess. She's pretty cool. But cool. And then our second guest today is actually a super mom. I've said this a couple times inside the podcast. I have a true respect for women because I think that they could just do things so much better than men can, and multiple success books that I've read, it said that with man is nothing without a woman, right? And so they're really
Nice.
the catalyst, that divinity. And I respect women that really go above and beyond to build their life, to continue building their life, their business, and still take care of kids. So I've seen Taylor really do God knows how many things at once, right? With two kids, arguably three, because Michael is sometimes depending on the day, arguably three children that she has to take care of, building a business, still being a mom, and still taking care of herself. So I'm super excited to have two different perspectives, because today we're really focusing on a specific topic that's kind of been going around everywhere actually, which is like topic of like women's rights, abortions, this whole lawsuit that just got overturned here this week. So why don't we start off with just you guys just kind of giving us just a little history. It doesn't have to be too crazy, but just kind of like who you are, where you come from, what you're up to nowadays. Let's start with you, Taylor.
Wow, thank you so much for that introduction. I am feeling honored and blessed to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of your podcast. This is my second time being on a podcast, so I'm just grateful to be a part of your vision. My name is Taylor Hierro. I am 24 years old, and I'm a mother of two little girls. So I started the journey of motherhood a little bit earlier than I would have ever imagined, but the perfect timing in my life, because it's taught me so much and everything that I need to know to, I believe, become the woman that I want to be. So to kind of give you a background, I'm from Guyman, Oklahoma. It's a really, really small town in Oklahoma in the Panhandle that literally nobody knows about yet. I'm putting my city on the map. I've been with my husband now for 7 years. So we moved to Dallas, we've moved to Michigan, we've been traveling together. We're now living in Puerto Rico. We just recently moved here with our family to pursue our business and to be around like-minded individuals, because for the past 3 years, we've been pursuing entrepreneurship within a trading community, learning a lot about cryptocurrency, learning a lot about e-commerce. And, when we started this, our goal was to be able to raise our kids together at home. So when people ask me what I do, they're like, oh, okay, you work from home. What about your husband? And I'm like, he's at home with me too. And that's a dynamic that you won't see a lot. You see the man out working, and I think it's a blessing that we've been able to raise our children together at home just through what we've been able to learn. So that's kind of a background for me and what I've been up to. My vision is to just help women understand themselves more so before they start a family. But if they're at that point in their lives, I also want to help them with that. But just helping women understand themselves, set goals for themselves so that they can be strong in who they are and what they bring to the table and how they complement the man that they're with. Because things that I've seen and where I come from, women can be very dependent on the man that they're with, because that's what we're taught in Disney movies and, you know, how we're brought up. You find the man, he saves you and he's going to do everything for you. So I think it's super important that women come from a place where they know who they are, what they want, and they know what they bring to the table, and they just add value to their family when they become a mother and a wife and whatever it is that they do. So that's what I'm passionate about, and I will go ahead and hand it off back to you. Thank you again for having me.
Hey, thank you. Ange?
Oh, I'm glad she went first, because honestly, like, her path kind of yeah, she's just made the pathway a little bit easier for me. She's someone who I look up to. But you guys know, obviously, Jordan. So we've been together for about 3 years. But honestly, like, the biggest inspiration to me and like what I want to do and what I want to get out of life is, like I said, similarly to Taylor, I have no babies yet, just this fur one. But I imagine my life to be, and I'm creating this life with somebody so special, to just be somebody who can have the freedom to just exist and, you know, set up a better, like, I don't even know what I'm saying.
Just to create a better future than, you know, the one that we had. I think that's what a lot of us do here. It kind of unites a lot of us is, you know, like, our parents did the best that they could, but having learned the information that we have, like Taylor and Michael being an example, you know, of being able to have a family in a way where you actually get to spend time with your kids as they grow up.
Exactly. Yeah. So no babies yet, but he's taught me a lot. And just to be able to, you know, live life and exist with those people. That's genuinely what I'm looking forward to. But yeah, we've been focusing on trading a lot. I do have a 9 to 5, and that's what kind of pushes me to not continue this lifestyle. It's like pushed me a lot for like further and harder to just, I don't know why this is so hard for me to even talk in front of you guys.
It's cool. It's always changes. It always changes when there's a when you feel like there's a like the camera's rolling, you know. It's like such a natural thing. But you know, just for you guys, like, this is not like, we're not running like a, I know everybody's so used to like being on Zoom and stuff and like having to like perform or something. This is just a conversation that we just have. Like, Jordan and I just bullshit the whole way through. We come
There's
up
no
with
plan.
there's
script.
no, like, I have a notebook right here, right, when I come up with ideas, but like, I literally 5 minutes, I got prepared 5 minutes before we started recording. So you guys don't have to feel like you have to put pressure on it, because the more natural it is, the more real the conversation gets. Especially because it is a tough subject, you know, like, there's not like, yo, you know, there's nobody to impress here. So that's the cool thing about it. But Taylor said something really cool that I kind of wanted to kind of kick off the subject with, and she mentioned Disney movies. This is gonna be so interesting because we're talking to two different people, so we're like, I want to address two different things. It's gonna be cool. I like this. But real quick before I get into that, I got a dog so I could practice being a dad, and that for sure has helped a lot. Like, that's the responsibility that you have to take care of when you leave the house, feeding the dog, making sure that you take, you know, when they're puppies, like taking like care of it and like wiping its ass, not literally, but you know,
Sometimes.
cleaning up after it. Yeah, sometimes. So that, I totally agree with that, you know, and that helps a lot. So definitely getting prepared for that. But Taylor, you said something interesting. You know, you mentioned Disney movies, right? And like the programming that kids in general, not just women, but kids in general get from that kind of stuff. So like, you guys, so you as a mother, and then you, Angie, right? Like, that's something that you want to, you know, fulfill. Like, I think that now And Jordan, I'd like to hear your opinion on this too, bro. Like, I think that nowadays, what we show kids is so much more important, because I feel like us parents and us adults are so much more aware of the stuff that is inside, the stuff that gets put out to children. You know what I mean? Like the things that are being projected to the like little kids' minds are nowadays a lot more, maybe not so PG. They're like PG-13, but like not classified as PG-13. So like I kind of want to start with that. Like what are we for and what are we against as far as what we're showing to like little kids? Once there's no order here, because whoever
Can I
wants to
side note on that?
run it.
Have you ever watched like the things that you watched as kids now as adults, and you're
Oh
like,
my
okay,
God.
that's totally like, what is that sexual
Mhm.
innuendo? That's bizarre to me. Like, oh, I can't even think of exactly what movie it was. I think it might have honestly been like SpongeBob or something, where I was like, what? Like, I grew
Yeah,
up
like
watching this and they're saying some weird things. Like, that could have gone a very interesting way, but you don't really notice that until
until
obviously
you're an
you have a
adult,
different
right?
mindset.
Yeah, you like the question has to be posed like, what is the intention of putting those subliminal messages in these sorts of things that are designed for children? Like obviously as a child, your brain isn't developed enough to understand those subliminal messages and what they're suggesting to you. But like that's the question I want to pose is like, what do you guys think is that intention of putting those subliminal messages in children's movies? Like,
Well, I can hop in. Right now, my daughter, I let her kind of explore on, it's a YouTube Kids app, and I can, set a timer, and she enjoys shows like Blippi. If you're a parent, then, but if you're not, you're like, what the fuck is a
yeah, I'm
Blippi?
not familiar.
And it's pretty much a man child. Like he walks around and to like just life. He's like, this is a helicopter and this is a dinosaur, and just very like excited. And so that's kind of her interest right now. And I think it's super important to, I guess, kind of let your child explore. I feel like it's brought a lot out of Lily and who she is and what she likes. But also, like, there's times where I tell her, like, Lily, I don't like what you're watching. And she kind of understands where it's like, okay, I'm gonna turn this off. Because I feel like it kind of what's projected on TV and just programming in general, I feel like there's good and bad. I feel like it kind of helps us have like an understanding of society and how to hold conversations and just different scenarios where you're learning like just social skills, like how to she knows how to take orders. This little window right here, she's like, mommy, I
Oh,
want
that's cute.
cream. So like I feel like there's good and bad to it, and I want to focus more on the good and like maximize that. So that's been my experience as a parent. But it's been weird watching stuff that I used to watch, because I'm like, how does a child even know what's going on?
That's very interesting. Yeah, I bet I've rewatched SpongeBob a couple of times, and there is a lot of like, there's kind of a lot of sexual stuff in there too that like little kids wouldn't, they wouldn't understand. But when you watch it as an adult now, because I don't know what perverted our minds, but like it's just like, oh, like, did you really just say that? Like, and I'm like looking at the little kids like, wow, they didn't catch that. Like they're just not aware of it yet. So I guess it is a good thing, I guess it's kind of like the development of minds. Yeah, that's good. So go ahead.
Do your kids watch Coco Melon? I think that's what it's called.
I was gonna ask the same thing.
Yes, Lily actually hasn't been watching too much of it recently, but she likes Coco Melon. And I've sat there. One thing that I do is I'll sit there and watch it with her. And it kind of is like a bonding experience where she's showing me, like, look, mommy, like she knows her colors. She knows ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. The girl can count to like 10 in a breeze. Going on 20. She's 2 years old. So I'm like, she's learning stuff on this little Coco Melon show that we send kids to school for. So I'm grateful for it. And I think it's kind of cool that she can learn it off of that. So music, she loves to sing. So it's very, I guess, like HD too. The kids love the colors and stuff. She knows characters by name. So it's just cool to watch it as a parent. Like, you know, we would get excited about SpongeBob. So it's kind of like going with the flow, not taking it too serious, not being a helicopter parent, because there is times where I'm like, all right, we got to turn that off because it's just ridiculous. Like, we're not watching this right now. But you know, it's something that she enjoys. So I want to show her that I take an interest in her interests too.
I saw something. Sorry, did I cut someone off?
No, go ahead.
I saw something on TikTok that kind of, it's interesting that you say that, like you feel like she's enhancing from watching stuff like this, because I don't know if it was a developer or someone gave some insight on the show in particular, and just the time frames of how quick it's flipping from one scene to another compared to like what Looney Tunes or an old cartoon that we would watch back in the day. It's just so much quicker, and it's interesting to think like that's kind of really how reality is nowadays too. Like everything's just so much more fast paced, this, that. So in a way you can look at it as like a negative thing. Like, oh my God, my kid's going to get freaking ADHD watching this, because it's just like on to the next thing, on to the next thing. But then when you say, you know, Lily's already counting to almost 20 at her age, there are perks to it. And then there's also like, is this going to be like detrimental to like her attention span? Or is it just like enhancing her ability to soak in intelligence and knowledge like faster? It's interesting to see. I'm like, it could go both ways, but it's cool, you know, like obviously you can't keep your kids from everything all at once, and
Right.
yeah, you got to expose them to some things. I'm not saying that Coco Melon's bad, but it's just interesting to look at how it affects a kid. That's all.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, like my mom tried keeping me away from stuff, and the stuff she tried keeping me away from was the stuff I tried gravitating towards. Like I remember at the time I had a PSP, and she found out that I had GTA on it, and she like, and then of course, you know, it's like, I think I was in 7th grade, so I was like 12 years old, and that game is actually pretty violent. You know, like you
Very
can
violent.
rob people, beat them up, you know.
One thing that Bob Proctor actually taught me, and I actually got to talk to him about this because I asked him, I was like, Bob, like, I'm a parent. How did you and Linda do it? And he was like, you know, when you encourage a child, those are the kids who are encouraged. And when you highlight things that they're good at, they're the confident adults. But if we find everything to criticize them about, whether it's something like that, I mean, like, sit down and ask him, like, why do you like this? Lily likes to watch things about Halloween. She loves Halloween. She loves ghosts. And like, she's like, ghosts, like trick or treat. She loves Halloween. And so I kind of asked her, like, why do you like that? So just finding a way to like turn it into a good thing, and encourage them to, I guess, not explore more of it, but like highlight it for them and build confidence behind what they're doing, because it builds their self-esteem.
I think that's so important too, because I think we also live in an age, and this can bring up the more relevant topics I think that we were intending on talking about today. It's like we live in an age where there's a lot of information that has been exposed to us. And I think some people have been affected by it more than others, because sometimes, you know, the truth of the world isn't always rainbows and sunshine, you know? So I think it's like you were saying, Taylor, like when you foster curiosity in a child and you let a child explore the world for what it is, and it's not bad to learn about the negative things of life, you know, like that's part of life, is exploring all parts of it, you know? So it's like if you shy away from it your whole life and then you become an adult and you're exposed with some real ugly truth, like you might not have the skills or the ability to process that ugly truth, to stomach that ugly truth. You know, and I think it's really important that we like, that's why we do this podcast. That's why we're here. It's like we like exploring controversial ideas, like sensitive topics, because I think it's important just to be able to create the conversation and at least give the space for people to give their thoughts on it. Because if not, you know, like that I don't think the opposite of that, you know, if you're not allowed to explore it and you don't develop that ability to have those tough conversations, that's kind of what leads to major problems down the road.
Yeah, it's what creates biases, and then everybody gets offended because you're opposing a different idea than what is the one that you believe, and then everybody just starts getting into fights and then creates a civil war, which is kind of what's happening right now, which is what I wanted to talk about. Right, this is kind of like the subject, right? The reason we wanted to have you ladies on here was because of this, right? Jordan, I think we should start off by just saying our opinion and then just kind of letting them go into it, because here's mine, right? I don't really have one other than the fact that it's 100% political. Like, that's it. Like, this is just 100% political. And my second opinion to that, like a follow up, is like it's just another part of a media. Obviously, obviously, right. This is why you don't just want to have one opinion. You don't have multiple. I think it's just part of the plan to distract people from what's actually going on, which is the crazy. I just found out that Switzerland or something announced that like it's been the lowest index for growth, and not just U.S. economy, but world economy. It's at 30, and anytime it gets below 50 is a problem. And it's at 30, and it declined from 54 to 30 in 4 months. And nobody's talking about it because everybody is, I don't want to use the word distracted, but everybody's using their opinions and their their voices to the subject that's being talked about now, which is, I don't remember the lawsuit, so I want to make sure I'm quoting this correctly.
Roe versus Wade.
Roe versus Wade lawsuit, where the Supreme Court overturned, was it a ban on abortion, or was it pro, or right? What they made it so. Go ahead.
It was a constitutional right for women that they are allowed to seek abortions, and that was what it was, and it was overturned now and left to the states. So each state is now able to dictate whether it's legal or not within its states. State I hail from, Wisconsin, already announced that it's going to be completely illegal. So yeah, they basically illegal. Yeah, they backtracked on what the rule was, and so I mean, yeah, my 2 cents on it. Like, as a male, I don't have a strong opinion on it, to be honest. Because I don't feel like I'm entitled to a strong opinion on it. I don't feel like I should be making that decision for women, which is exactly why we wanted to bring 2 women on here to give their opinions on it and create that conversation. I just want to be here to ask tough questions, ask both sides of the questions, play devil's advocate, because I do see both sides. I really do understand. If your view of life is that it begins at inception, then I can see why you'd have an opinion that is wrong. And I also see the other side of the opinion is like, you should have the right. It's your body. It's your choice. Body autonomy, I believe in strongly. And I also think it's a very political issue too. And that's, unfortunately, it shouldn't be a political issue, but unfortunately it is. And I think it's also another tactic that's been used many times to divide and conquer people. And it's a very divisive issue. You can really put people on 2 sides, and it's a touchy subject, but I'm very actually excited and curious to get into this conversation. So yeah, ladies, if you guys want to jump in, and then for anybody listening, like maybe in the future, we're recording on the 26th of June. Again, we're talking about Roe v. Wade being overturned. So, but yeah, ladies, if you guys want to jump in and give us your 2 cents.
So I'll go first. I think it's kind of scary that government gets into dictating what people can and can't do to their bodies. I think nothing is black and white, especially when it comes to women's health and even mental health, physical health, emotional health, things like that. When that starts to be in other people's hands, that I don't really 100% agree with that. So to me, I feel like it's just a scary time. Like, I empathize with both sides. Like I said, it's not black and white. Some people may think after 12 weeks, like Jordan and I had this conversation yesterday, after 12 weeks, okay, maybe these particles and whatever are more than just these little atoms that just were created inside this body. Maybe it's more life than what we know, right? So I could see a side where it's not really doesn't feel as ethical to abort that, right? Or to end that life. If you so think that is life. So I could
people
see
would say
that
on that side is murder.
Right. I in a way, okay, I can kind of empathize and see where people are coming from with that. But I also do think it's nobody's choice and responsibility but that person's. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And I truly believe in the, how do you say it? The quality of life. Like, if somebody was to be put on this earth and let's just say both parents weren't thrilled or happy about it. Like, what kind of life are you to have coming from that type of energy? You know what I mean? Like, being supported, being well cared for, obviously having the basic needs, of course, but there's more to life than just that. And when both sides aren't fully happily, ready for this life and ready to support it, like, I'm not saying that they shouldn't exist. That's not what I'm saying at all. But obviously, the quality of life might be a little bit different. So there's just so many things to take into account when it comes to this stance where I'm like, you have to like, how do you not empathize with people who are like afraid to bring something like that, which is a whole ass life, a whole another person, a whole being who needs quite a bit of things, who produces energy, but also takes a lot of energy. There's just so much to that it's a lot. It's a big responsibility. And really what kind of hurt my heart that I just couldn't not think about were, let's just say, a 16-year-old girl who just didn't know better and, was raised with not much support or guidance, and she made a mistake. Now she's in a state like Wisconsin. She has absolutely no support. She doesn't know who to turn to. But let's say she does get pregnant, like, who is she going to turn to? Like, this is really scary. Like, I'm sure she has maybe something going on more mentally or things like that. Like, of course, we all do, especially at that age. But that's something that I empathize with so much, is like, what are we going to do with situations like that? Like, I just feel terrible and scared for what potentially could happen to her, the choices that she might make that might not be as healthy for her if she wanted to act in a way to not go through with making life and creating life. And yeah, it's scary. It's interesting because there, like I said, there's no black and white to it. um every person's different. Every person comes from a different background, so it's a lot harder to just say this is what I stand for. But I do think, to sum it up, like, what I stand for are people making decisions for themselves in their own body and their own well-being. And yeah, I think it really comes down to, like, it's so much bigger than just abortion. Like, there's so much more that I think we could talk about when it comes to, like, just supporting people and things like that. But that's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother topic that I think is an issue with just mental health and whatnot. But that's besides the point.
I got a lot of things to come back to on what you said, but Taylor, I want to hear your side.
Yeah, well, I mean, coming from being pregnant twice, the very first time I was pregnant, I found out in my school's bathroom. I
Jesus.
hadn't, yeah, like it had been 3 weeks. I found out at like 3 weeks. I knew, I was like, there's life growing inside of me. And Michael and I had literally just gotten back together. So our circumstances, it wasn't like we were married and we had everything planned out and like I felt prepared. But I did feel like I felt happy like when I found out. So the thing that we're talking about right now, which is abortion, I've never been in the position where I felt like that was an option that I had to take or had to consider. So there's not much that I can really speak on, I feel like. I think she slipped. Michael's on dad duty right now. But I feel like whenever we talk about these complex issues, and I had reposted this on my Instagram story, when we talk about complex issues, we're dealing with a lot of perspectives. So my opinion can only go so far. And it's backed by a few of my beliefs. I was taught, or it was programmed within me, that abortion is wrong. It's murder. And then I had a friend. I've had multiple friends who came to me and they were like, pregnant. I don't want this baby. Like, I'm not ready. And I think I'm going to get an abortion. And it was a time for me where I had to not condemn anybody, but love them and understand. So when we talk about these kind of complex issues, like, I'm big on I don't even want to say my religion, my spirituality, and just who I am as a person and how I love others. Because to love is to discern where people are coming from. It's a maturity that you hold to have your opinion and then be able to listen to others. Have your beliefs and be open to others, and you don't have to agree with it, and you don't have to condemn anybody from where they're coming from. So that's maturity when we're talking about complex issues like this, because there's different places where it's coming from. You have the public opinion on what abortion is. Is it murder? Is it not? What's the circumstances that it's happening under? Were they raped? Are they too young? Were they just messing around and they just got pregnant and now they don't want a child? Or what's the principles behind it? Like, is it a religion thing? Like, it's a non-negotiable, never have an abortion? Is it a personal thing? Like, I don't know. You just don't know people's circumstances. So where I'm coming from is the government, if they really, really cared about life, I think a lot of things would be different in our country. But this specific topic about abortion is more so, I feel like a woman should have the option, a safe option to do that, just as a man has a safe option to go and get a vasectomy, which is technically, getting rid of his life source, which is the same thing as a woman. Well, not the same thing, but it's taking away, like, he has an option to not create life. And it's kind of one and the same with a woman, except that life has already been created. And that's where, for me, it's like, I don't know. I've never been in that position. I don't think I could do it, but I've never been in that position, so I can't speak on it. But I think it's just important to have an open heart and understand that whatever decisions anybody else makes, it's between them and God. They're going to learn whatever they need to learn from it. I've had friends who regret it, and they think about their life if they wouldn't have had the abortion. And I'm just here to love them through it. That's my only opinion.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. I have an opinion on the matter of, like, kind of similar to yours, Taylor. I think it's when you're dealing with complex issues, you can't quite understand. There's no way possible to understand all the complexities somebody's going through with making that sort of decision. And I believe in what I thought and what I was taught as what the American version of this world and this society, like what we try to create our society as in America, is a place of freedom, the freedom of choice. I believe in that so strongly. Like, whatever side you're on, you are entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to your freedom of that choice. So both sides, if you're not for it, cool, that's your right. If you're for it, cool, that's your right as well. That's the world I grew up in. That's the world I want to uphold, is giving that freedom to both sides, because it's when you try to dictate to other people what they can or can't do, I think that's what causes the friction and causes the problems.
Yeah, facts. That's something that Angie said. She said when the government can control what people can, and she said people, she didn't say women. She said when the government can control what people can and can't do with their body, that's when you're crossing the line. And I thought it was interesting that she didn't use the word women specifically, but she said people, right? Because then we go back to this still what some somewhat sensitive topic of, like, vaccinations. I think we're allowed to say that word now. I think it's been long enough where we're not going to get flagged, but
Don't say the C word.
yeah, we just can't say that one. It's like that was mandated upon people to come back to work, and it was just like, dude, like, if I don't want to do that, then I lose my job, so really I have no choice. And so yeah, that's a really, really, really interesting thing. And then one thing that I wanted to touch up on is one thing that Taylor said too. She said it was like the love and understanding versus the condemning of people. I think that's super important, because if I think because we've created the world, I think in general, I mean, specifically, I mean, I live in America, right? So specifically, America has created this political view for everything, that there's a red and a blue side, or a white and a black side, or a right and a wrong side. And it's always two-sided, where it's like you either love and understand somebody, or you're condemning them. You're either like pro or you're against. And it's like, we just all have to, and then this is a tough thing, because this is a universal thing, right, of human nature, understand that love is the answer. Like, this cliche as that sounds, like, love is the answer. If you just love and understand people, and whether they're doing something wrong that you think is wrong doesn't mean that what you do is what everybody else does too. So those are just kind of like the two things that I thought were really, really important that you guys said that needed to be just like reinforced, right? It's just like the government is not just taking women's rights. It's getting to the point where government, and this is a whole conspiracy thing, right? We always talk about it, but it's like the government is not just taking women's rights, but it's like it's borderline crossing the line of like human rights and like dictating what we can do to our body, which is messed up. And then the second thing was, like love, love and understanding versus condemning somebody to something. I think the fear of criticism is so big throughout the world that people don't make the choices that they feel like they should, because they're scared that somebody's gonna look down upon them. Yeah, and then I think a topic within itself, right, which Taylor mentioned, was like under the circumstances, everybody has a choice under certain circumstances. I think the topic itself, and I kind of want to address this with everybody, is like sex. It's not talked about very often. And in the power of now, it's or not the power of now, Conversations with God. Everybody should read that book if you haven't already. It talks about like if that wasn't a godly thing to do, then why would it feel so good? So like if it wasn't, so yeah, obviously, a 16-year-old girl. My mom had me, she was 16, I think, 16 or 18, something like that, so like super, super young. So like, and I've had, I've met parents that have had kids really, really young and ended up being some of the best parents in the world, so it's like, I think the topic of sex is just so undercovered, especially in religious places. And, like my parents, they had the quote unquote, the talk with me, right? But like sophomore year in high school, when they knew like I was already talking to girls, which is like, by that time it was too late, So like, it's just like that subject of like, how and what do you think? My question for all of you guys is, do you guys think that if we just educate the younger generation on sex more, that it can prevent some of these circumstances that Taylor was talking about, where it would force a woman to have to decide whether or not to, which is still controversial, I guess, because it's not up to us to decide whether they can or not. But yeah, I mean, my question is, do you guys think that like the if we educate people on just like sex more, it would change kind of circumstances?
Are you saying educate or remove a stigma? I feel like that to me is like a little bit of why we have such a negative connotation with sex. Like, oh, like what movie was that? Mean Girls? You're gonna get sex or you're gonna have sex and get herpes and die or something like that. Like that is an kind of what reality is. Like what it seems to be like when it comes to talking with our parents about it. Like that's all you need to know. Like, be careful, don't do this, don't do that. And it's like, what? Actually, like not everybody was produced from a loving household and this and that. So it doesn't have to be this lovey-dovey story, but also talking about it like that isn't really going to give you the best outcome, I guess. Like when you have that type of energy talking about something like that serious, you also get some weird stories that you tell yourself and make up in your head where you're like, I don't know, is this okay that I should be doing this? Like, should I be hiding this from my parents? This and that. Like when I told my mom I had a boyfriend at 16, we instantly went to the doctor to get birth control. Like that was, we didn't even have a conversation. She's like, all right, I made this appointment. We're going to go here. Take these poisons. Take this poison pill. Here you go. Like that's pretty much the extent of it. So I don't know. It's like, yeah, I guess educating people on the topic does remove the stigma. I do think this is a whole, I feel like this could be a whole nother story too. And
it is
conversation where how early should we be talking about these things to kids? I have opinions on that. But we don't have to go into that really. But yeah, I think educating people on the topic. Huh?
That's what the podcast is for.
I mean, I don't think like a preschooler should really know that like he's putting his penis inside of me. Like, I don't really know if we have to go into it at that age, like preschool, probably not. But at the time where like it's natural for kids to get hormonal changes, right? Like we all kind of know that's a natural thing. It happens at a natural age. It's probably a natural thing to want to want to talk about it. It's probably already been brought up at school. Then it's like, okay, well, maybe we should be speaking on the topic and educating. Yes. But I think we have to be so, not particular, but I guess you have to be really wordy with the way that you're going to be talking to kids about this, because I do think there's such a negative connotation with like, you have to be really secretive, like nobody should know, besides like your parents shouldn't know that you're doing this or whatever. And I think that's when a lot of like bad stigmas come from this. That's really kind of where it starts, in my opinion, like how we can associate things so badly to sex, and how we have such strong opinions or bad opinions on what we should be doing or how we should be doing it, with who we should be doing it with, things like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
That's good. Taylor, 2 cents or 3 or 10, however many you want.
yeah, I'll put 10 cents in that one.
Yeah, as a parent, I've told Michael, like, I am looking forward to having that conversation with my daughters, because I think if we actually help people for one, just help people, let's start with helping people understand themselves. And if that's something that they want to explore, because I don't think I wanted to explore it at 12 years old, but I think that's when it became like a conversation in school. That's when we were taught, we literally had a paper sent to us to take home for our parents to sign if they wanted us to be further educated on sex. And my parents, they signed it, they let me go. And pretty much we were shown a video of how babies are made. Like, this is the process of, okay, 2 people have sex, and then this is how the implantation, this is how somebody's impregnated, the biological standpoint of getting pregnant, the consequence of having sex. And that's what people were focused on, is, okay, you have sex, it's either a baby, an STD, and it's there. But the way that I see myself explaining this to my daughter is, okay, she's finding interest in a boy, and I want her to, or I don't want to plant the seed. We're not going to get too much into that, but just sexuality in general. What is that? What is that feeling of, I want to touch this person, I want to hug them and kiss them? Having an understanding of like what that is. And the way that I see myself, what I've learned, especially reading Think and Grow Rich and the Mystery of Sexual Transmutation, is understanding that your sexuality is in tune with your creativity. It's a creative method. You literally can procreate life through sex. And so if you can create life, the story or the mystery behind sexual transmutation by Napoleon Hill, and you know how he puts that into perspective, is that if you can transmute that sexual feeling, instead of putting it into physical acts of sex, you transmute it into creativity, and you start putting that focus on goals. You become a genius, because you're not just depositing your sexual energy into people, you're putting it into things that can be grown into other things. So the way that I want to explain it to my daughter and talking about sex is, okay, you have this feeling, your body is changing. You're now, puberty is your body telling you that you are ready to procreate life. You now have the ability that you didn't have before. You can have a baby now. Why? I want my children to understand why they want to have sex. Is it because you have a crush on somebody? If that's the case, we need to understand why, like, what is it that you see in this person? You understand that the baby could be a result of sex. Can you see yourself having a child with this person? Are you ready to have a child with this person? So I think there's a lot of things to consider in educating people. I just feel like we should help people fully understand like what it is, why they want to do it, so that they can be prepared to make decisions that will only enhance their lives. Because I think it's also super important that we just help people understand why they do what they do, and you know, just help them feel prepared with the decisions that they make. That's what I want to do with my daughters. Is I don't want them to be like, well, I didn't know. It's I want them to be like, okay, I have an understanding of what I'm doing, and I'm going to choose to do it or not to do it, and I'm going to know the consequences. I feel like that's a safer way of helping people understand it.
I really like that viewpoint, and I agree completely. Of just education is so important, of and exploring it in a sense of like the question why. Like I literally have it tattooed on my chest of like why are you attracted to this person? Why do you want to do that thing? Like what are the potential outcomes? And I found it really interesting that you said too that your parents had to sign a waiver for you to be educated about sex at school, because I think right now there's a lot of controversy with parents and children's and education, because and the question I wanted to ask everybody was like whose role should it be to educate children about sex? Should it be the parents, or should it be like the school? Should it be education? Because I think there's propagandas behind certain movements of sexual expression right now, unfortunately, that aren't maybe not in the best interest of everybody. Like, and I believe my 2 cents on that is like with the whole sexuality thing is like everybody's entitled to love whoever they want to love. Like love is love.
Love is
And
love.
there's nothing bad with more love in the world. Like you should be able to love whoever you want. But I think a conversation gets really interesting because especially with the fertility of just children's minds, it's an interesting word to use, but like the moldability, the malleability of a child's mind, and to be introducing certain topics at certain ages to their minds, it's yeah, I think it's really interesting to explore, because it's like at what age should children be presented with the idea of sexuality, because it's like you could, and I you can, I personally believe you can sway a children's mind with a certain intent, and if you, how do I word this? It's like, yeah, like that's the question I'll pose. I'll just leave it at that. It's like, at what age should children be exploring these topics? At what age is it appropriate for children to explore these topics?
I think, I mean, if I really go back and think about like when I started to like, Taylor was like a really good way to kind of like expose that, right? Like when you get this like feeling of sexuality of like, yo, I want to hug this person, or like I just want to like touch this person, like yeah, like like what would that feel like when that was like, that was probably like 7th grade, right? So what is that? 2000, so that was like 11, 10, 11, 12 ish, somewhere around there, right? So between the ages of like 11 and 13,
Oh, yeah.
no, I think before 13, I think before you, once you get to 13, yeah, between 10 and 12, I think would be the best, like best thing in my opinion, because if you think about it, then once you're a teen, right? Dude, when I was 13, like it was sophomore, no, it was freshman, 8th grade, freshman year, right? So like by that time, like it was already,
Oh yeah, bro.
it was already, the ball was
as
already rolling, bro.
as a kid, yeah, as a man, like, because I think it's different for women, but like as a young boy, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember 7th grade, like we had
Like, down, like,
a
what's going
teacher. That was when like we were all talking about our teacher, like, bro, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And like it, so yeah, I mean, I think for women it would be the same thing, because you have to in my opinion, right? You have to treat women like you treat men, because if you're talking to your son, for example, your father or your mother, talking to your son about like, yo, you're about to start getting horny, like you also have to talk to your daughters about that, like, yo, like these dudes that you're hanging out with that are your friends right now that you have on Snapchat, the daily streaks on Snapchat, like they're starting to feel these things, and like they're gonna come and start acting a different way towards you. So like you have to figure out a way to handle it. And this subject right now is like it's hitting home, because my sister, she's about to be in high school, right? And like
Ooh.
I don't know if my parents have talked to her about that, but like I know that I have to at some point. It's super uncomfortable because like it's just not a comfortable subject, right? It's the first time that I've ever had to talk to about it. with anybody, not even like with my parents. I was just like nodding my head and listening. So, but yeah, that's my thing, right? I think someone should be introduced to this opinion of sexuality, because then it can remove these dogmas of what's been implanted. Like, for example, Taylor said that she was led to believe at a younger age that abortion was not a good thing, right? So like, you can remove these dogmas if we educate people between these ages. I think it's like between 10 and 12. That's
Hey, girls, on a lighter note, like maybe a little funnier, but like, what age were you guys? Can you recall like the first time you were like had those thoughts, of being attracted to, like, for me it's crystal clear. I remember.
I had a crush on this boy down my street named Louise, and he was my first kiss, but I think he wanted to kiss me. He was older. So I think I was feeling like more pressure than anything. So I don't think it happened until like after the fact. Like, I don't even know. That actually kind of sounds bad. But I did have an older brother. And a dad that was really protective of me, who told me that I couldn't date until I was like 18. So I feel like I had a lot of things like put in my head already, where I was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or I guess maybe where life could take me at this point. Like, this guy's kind of cute, whatever. But I don't think I even really cared to kiss him. I just kind of did, but I was probably like maybe 10, I don't know. And I think he was a little bit older, but I was like, okay, kiss. Ooh, I think we were in the back of my mom's car randomly. And then my brother and I don't even know, she was like a family friend. They like just pressured us like, oh, kiss him. And then we just did. And it was like, okay, awesome. What was that? But when I actually like seriously think I was like, ooh, kind of cute, I feel like I was probably around the same age though, like 12, maybe. What grade is that?
Like middle school, I feel
Like
like
middle
middle
school
school
or
was that
middle
like
school. Yeah, like 6th, 7th grade. Yeah, I was like, oh, he's cute. Yeah. And then you'd like write his name over and over and over again in like your notebook.
Write it in hearts.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you got the middle
Like,
school dances,
you
it's
make
like,
like
who
a
you gonna
sim of
ask?
him.
You do one of
You have
these.
like a Sims
You're
couple.
like, you hold the
Oh,
weights
slow
and
dancing
move
in
it.
middle
Yeah.
school. You're like, how low do I put my hands?
Yeah.
She's got her
Start
hands
sweating.
awkwardly on you.
But it was also innocent too. I feel like that's also another point that I wanted to bring up as well. Like, at that age, like things are already very confusing and like a lot, and you're trying to navigate plenty of emotions and feelings where you're like I said, I was like, I don't know, what kiss, okay, whatever. Like, I'm still trying to like, I guess, I don't even know, just understand what the heck's even going on between like that. So that's already confusing. So I feel like how much we expose at that point could also be detrimental as well. Like, there's simplicity, there's beauty in simplicity. I'll leave it at that. Like, sometimes too much exposing can just make things way harder on like a mind that's already expanding and developing like at crazy levels.
Right.
Yeah,
Like, sometimes too much of that, especially sexual energy and things like that, could be a little bit, too much. But again, I'm not the person that's going to be like, yeah, you shouldn't say more than this XYZ past this is too much. Like, who's to say that? I don't really know, but I do feel like sometimes too much in depth can probably actually be negatively impact a kid,
Yeah.
Taylor, what about you? What was can you recall your first crush, maybe the time you were like, ooh?
My first crush, I think, was in kindergarten. Like,
Hey.
I saw a boy and I was like, oh, like, but I think I don't know if it came from like watching shows and like, I'm
Right.
curious. We watch things about princesses finding their prince and fairy tales. So like, it was almost like, I don't know if he was my friend, but it was just like an attraction. And I think we have to understand that that is a thing that happens amongst humans. We are attracted, we're energy, so we're attracted to literally what we're in vibrational harmony with. So I want to have kind of those conversations with my kids. It's like, you're attracted to somebody. Do you know what that means? Like, yes, you're physically attracted, it's physically appealing, but you're like in vibrational harmony with this person. So maybe that's your friend, this is a companion, maybe this is your soulmate, but like, having that conversation where it's not like condemning, like, oh my God, when I was 15 and like the action was being taken, I was condemned. Like my mom called me names, like every name in the book, not to just put my mom out there, but I see where she's coming from, the dynamic behind it. But the shame that came behind like just being attracted to someone, being in love, it was like, oh my gosh, maybe I am a whore. Like maybe I am a slut. Like, oh my gosh, like because I like this person, I don't know. So it's like, I don't want to shame my children behind that. I want them to understand what it is, and to move safely around it. And with daughters, I want them to see themselves as sacred. Like you can literally bring life into the world. And so like, are you ready for that as a woman? Because it's such a big responsibility to bring a child into the world and to just share your energy with someone like that. Because on a spiritual level, when you're exchanging energy in that way, like you don't know what that person carries with them and what kind of attachment that brings. So like, are you ready for that? Do you even have a full understanding of yourself and what you want when you connect with someone and you put yourself in like a union with them? Like, do you understand that you have now like connected yourself with them and you're going to make decisions that involve them? You're not focused on you. You're not focused on your goals. You're focused on a relationship. Like, so it's a lot. Like this is a complex issue. There's so much to consider that it's like, oh my gosh, where do I even start? But I want my children, especially my daughters, to see sex as something sacred, because it won't be the man that they're with or the crush that they have. It will be them who carry a child, who birth a child, and who buck up. Like, yeah. That's the responsibility that comes with sex. It's not just you're cute, let's do it, and we're in love. It's a lot more to it. So have a full understanding of like just an attraction to a man too. Like, yeah, he's cute, but let's have the real conversation of, okay, after he's cute, who is this person, and what value do they bring you, and what value do you bring them? Those are conversations that I want to have with my children. So because sex is just the act of it, the physical act. Like, what's the feeling behind it? Is it love? Is it lust? Is it just like, what is it? And having them have an understanding of that, because if I can help my daughters understand that it's lust and that sexualizing another human is kind of low on the emotional scale, sexualizing somebody for your own benefit is not necessarily like high vibrating. It's not love. It's just as physical as it can get. So that, I don't know. I haven't really had this conversation. These are conversations I've had in my own mind, and like an understanding that I've had of myself and how I wish that it would have been suggested to me, because it's a big topic.
For sure. I love your perspective, Taylor, and I just gotta mention that I think you're a great parent already, and I think you're gonna be even a better parent. Like, and I think that's the whole point of like my view on like being a parent. Yeah, is just being able to do the things that you wish were done for you. And like I love that perspective too of like the energetic exchange of sex and what that means, and looking at it and exploring it and painting it in that light versus just like, I think the culture and society we grow up in and like exist in, you look at music videos, you look at movies, you have like, it's an interesting dichotomy because you have the juxtaposition of the princess and the prince story of like the natural love, but then at the same time you get the like the girls dancing on the cars, the rappers talking about titties and ass, and it's like that's one end of the picture, and that's a complete other end. Like, the reality is definitely in the middle there, and so it's like exploring that. I think this has been a great conversation, and I appreciate everyone's input. But like, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I think it's interesting because I don't think a lot of people talk about it in terms of like energy and exchanging it like that, because it's usually either painted one of the two ways. Like, even as guys, I remember like when we would in high school, like that's the thing to age. A lot of people become sexually active and stuff. And I wish my parents would have educated me on that. I wish I would have got that information because it is almost like as a man's perspective, it's like, it's how do I put it? It's like a conquest, It's like, as a man in high school, it's like, bro, you slept with her? Like, bro, like,
I want to have a son because, well, if that even happens, but I think with a man, raising a man is completely different than raising a woman. I think that's another thing is like, yes, they're babies and they're cute and you have the baby phase, but you have to understand that you are raising the future, men and women of the future. And men, they need to be just as educated as little girls. I know we're talking about women's rights, but when it comes to a man, I also want, if I have a little boy, I want little boys to understand when they get to that age, like you're sexually attracted to this girl. Okay. Is this somebody that you want to plant a seed in? Like, seriously, what value does this woman bring to your life besides that she's cute? Because women have the same ability to be energy vampires. Like with girls, we're always taught that men just want one thing from you. That's what I was taught. And I think it's also important that a man should understand that a woman could just see you and it's just lust, and it's a fairy tale for her. She could be living in her own little fairy tale world, not fully understanding the value. Like, she won't be able to fully value you as a man. Do you want that? It's all superficial. I don't know. I feel like I have a very deep, I get very in depth with these topics, and maybe it's not even that freaking serious, but for me, I want my kids to take life serious enough to have confidence behind what they're doing, so that they can explain it to somebody else, where they're not just like, I don't know why I do what I do. I don't even know what I am and what this life is. Like, no, I want them to understand, I'm a great person. I add value to others and I have a good understanding of what I'm good at. And I don't know that I even want to share that with all these little girls or all these little boys. Like, I want to know that who I share that with is, that I just leave people with an impression of increase, because I don't want my son or really any little boys sexualizing little girls. I want them to hold respect for another human being as they should be respected.
That's so big. That's so big. I've been studying Think and Grow Rich too, and one of the longest chapters in that book is sex transmutation, and it was talking about what it is, and Taylor touched on it multiple times, but that's such a thing. And I think that's now that we're having this conversation, I just made a decision, I'm going to teach my kids that, how do you transmute your energy, your sexual energy that you have after having all these conversations, right? But how do you translate that into something bigger and better than just the physical act of sex? Because that really is I think Taylor brings down a great perspective. It's so much more mature than probably all three of us put together can bring on, because she has the experience of already having that instinctual mother thing that I know only mothers can have, I guess. So I think it's good that she brings up a lot of really good points. So yeah, that's one of the things that I wanted to add. I think that's so big, for something that I just recently discovered was that the topic of sexual expression is the lowest thing that you can do, because it's just that's it for some people that's all it is. It's just physical, and we are not just physical but that's where it's the devil's advocate here, right? That's why it's the thing that physically feels the best. So it's kind of a two-sided.
I think Taylor brought up a really good point, and I loved it. And I admire it, Taylor, with your parenting, because what I took from that was you have value, and I also share this value of installing certainty in your children. And I think these conversations, exploring your your thoughts, your ideas, it's really important to understand who you are and
Yeah.
have that certainty of who you are and have the certainty of the value and the worth that you are as a human being. And I think I can segue this into a very controversial topic, and it's something I'm very opinionated on. But I think, yeah, I think there is this kind of unfortunate thing happening in this world where a lot of young people are uncertain of themselves, and they're uncertain of their sexualities. They're uncertain of who they're supposed to be, and I think it's really important to like there are certain things in this world that we can't change, that we're just given and that we were born with, and like I want to love to hear you guys' topic, like opinions on the subject. Because yeah, I think that's an epidemic right now, is like uncertainty. And if you're uncertain of who you are to the core of like your genitalia, like, dude, that just causes for a whole range of other issues. My opinion, this is my 2 cents, right? Because, dude, if you don't, it's some of those things that we've all learned. I think everyone here is very person developed and done a lot of person development and read solutions. Like, we've all had those feelings of like, had the feeling of uncertainty, not understanding your worth, not knowing if you're good enough, right? There's a thought that goes in everyone's head. But the solutions I found for myself with that uncertainty is that I know that's all internal. And the only way to solve that problem is internally. There's nothing I can change in the external that will solve my internal uncertainty. And that's where I have a strong opinion. And I'm just going to put it out there. I'm a savage. This is the podcast. This is what we do. Like, dude, you can't, changing anything outside won't change anything internal, including your gender. And we're talking about sexuality. It's like, I think that's where like maybe we can be better and create these conversations, is like, yeah, we need to like, that's why I love your perspective, Taylor. And I brought this up is because I think that's so, so important and should be cherished, is installing that certainty of like, you're worthy as you are. There's nothing that needs to be changed. And you understand your worth and your value as you are. Nothing needs to be changed to like create that worth. So I don't know if you guys have opinions on that subject or not, because I think, yeah, it's something I see and I witness a lot, and it triggers me. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, yeah.
That's kind of slightly where I was going with the too much information and too much can confuse a person, because at that age, there's just a lot going on, right? You're trying to figure out yourself, but I think you have a really good point. Like every single human being, kind of tying it back to Roe versus Wade. And like I was saying too, every human being that's been put on this earth by choice or by not, whatever, this existence here, you need to know that you're supported and loved. And that is going to change your quality of life. If you don't have that, things are probably going to be dark and uncertain, like you were saying. And that's why I feel so, I guess, opinionated, just strongly about the fact that, if a life wasn't fully, like people weren't as supportive of this life to become in existence, the quality of life isn't going to be there. And that's just asking for a whole long, painful, dark life that sometimes you got to heal from straight from birth. And if that's something that we can maybe not have to pressure into existence, then maybe that's better for certain people, not for everybody. But yeah, I think the quality of life comes from making people know that no matter what, who you are, where you come from, what color your skin is, your hair, the people you're surrounded with, how much money you have in your bank account, no matter what, like you are worth whatever it is that you want out of life. Nothing is going to fix you. You don't need to be fixed.
Right.
Like you are here, and that's enough. That's enough. But when you're not being told that, or everything in life is showing you the opposite, it's really hard to understand that. When everything in life you're shown things are hard, you shouldn't be this person, by making this decision or changing this thing about you, oh, now you're going to be loved. Like that is absolutely like the opposite of how things should be. And it's just kind of like, it's just confusing because Pride's this week, Pride's this weekend. So that's funny. But we're always just talking about like inclusiveness and accepting things as they are. And sometimes I feel like we lose touch of that. Like that's exactly what we should be celebrating, is everybody as they are. But why do you have to change something about yourself? Because that's not really who you are then, you know? Like if that makes sense. I'm kind of going on a tangent there, but
just to
yeah,
add on
sometimes
to that.
we lose sense of that.
Yeah, it's just to add on to that, because I know, Angela, we have similar opinions. We've had these conversations. I would love to get Armando your opinion, Taylor, yours as well on it, if you care to. If not, that's cool. But I'm like, and I'm no means saying that, like, dude, I don't care. Like I said, like preface that whole thing is love is love. Like you can love whoever the heck you want. Like I don't care. Like you're a boy, you like boys, you're a girl, you like girls. That's cool, man. You want to present yourself a certain way. That is 100% cool in my book. Like love is love. It's a preference is preference. I have no qualms about that. But it's like at the point of where you feel the need to change yourself. That's where I'm like, okay, maybe this issue isn't about sexuality or gender. It's about self-acceptance. You know, you want everyone to accept you. You're so demanding. You change your pronouns. You change how other people are supposed to address you. But do you even accept yourself?
I think it has a lot to do with identity. I think people aren't able to find themselves because we've never been taught how to do that. At least me, bro. Like I was never, dude, up until we started learning about affirmations and, Bob Proctor using superlatives, speaking about yourself, it's never enough to speak enough about yourself. Like these kind of things, like I always thought it was like called conceited, you didn't want to be conceited. You don't want to be cocky, like you don't want to be these things. And it's like society portrays such a, like uh, almost like they want to like, I don't know what the right word for this is, but contain you. Yeah, they want to contain you as to what you can be, because you can't, when you're younger, you can't say I'm the best, because it come off as cocky, and you don't want to be cocky because you want to be accepted by other people. And so identity is not something that's ever really too taught or explained in some people. And I think what I have came to realize, and Jordan, you actually helped me realize this a lot, bro, because one thing that you said is you wear ideas like you wear outfits. And I really, that hits so hard, because I'm like, dude, well, these ideas portray your behavior, and your behavior is your personality. So like, can you have an idea and then change your behavior so you're a different person 100%, and then can you have another idea the next day and then change your behavior and change your identity? Yeah, like it's okay to do that. Changing your appearance physically, we're getting to a little bit deeper into, like, if you really don't know who you are, and so then you start changing your appearance. For example, like Michael Jackson didn't want to be black, so he changed his appearance, right? That is just like an internal, like, trauma. That is not something that I believe has to be just like mass portrayed as something that we have to accept. It has to be something that we have to, again, educate people on, because it's like, yo, people just don't have no idea how to find themselves, because it's difficult. Because I think in order for you to find yourself, you have to spend time by yourself to figure out who you really are. Or even, whether it's a lot of time or a little bit of time or something traumatic, right? Bob Proctor says, like, in order for change to happen, it's either repetition or it's like an emotional impact. So something has to happen, whether you just either spend a lot of time by yourself all the time, you figure out, okay, this is who I am, this is what I believe, this is what I'm going to portray myself as, or something, boom, something crazy has to happen to you where now you change. But yeah, before I get into anything else, Taylor, I want to hear kind of your opinion on that as well.
Yeah, well, what I'm hearing a lot is the word educate. And what Bob taught me is educating people is not giving them a lot of information. It's not the process of gathering or teaching information. It's helping people bring more of themselves to the surface. Because when you haven't, and I feel like all understanding comes from the basic laws of how our world functions. And I believe this is where this is gonna, I don't want to like go off on a whole other thing, but like religion and just God's word, God's truth, God being for the overall advancement and just greatness and creativity of humans, bringing more of that, God's love. And I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. You don't have to have a certain religion, but just that understanding and knowing and confidence and faith versus the very polar opposite of fear. With fear and misunderstanding of self and people, doubt and worry comes in, and it just leads to those kind of results on the negative pole. And those are going to happen on a lot of different subjects, whether it's relationships, parenting. You have it all comes down to faith or fear. And faith is developed through understanding, and understanding is only developed through study. And so I believe that we have to help kids have a good understanding of themselves. And this is where I was going earlier with what Bob taught me about kids. We have to encourage more of who they already are. So my daughter, watching her as a 2-year-old, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of her because she's so smart. And I tell her that often. You're so smart. Oh my goodness, you did such a great job. You're such a great singer. You're a great dancer. And then when I tell her that, it's like she gets better. It's like she gets better at whatever I'm telling her because she's already doing it. So why not encourage her? Why not tell her that she's doing a great job? And where was I going with this? Helping people have a good understanding of themselves and what they're great at. And kind of what we were talking about is like not telling them how the world works, of course, showing them, because that's what it comes down to. You can tell anybody anything, but they're not going to do what you tell them to do. They're going to do what you do. So that's the responsibility that I now have as a parent, as a woman raising 2 women, is what kind of woman am I showing them? Coming to an understanding of myself, I realized that I was more of a masculine woman. And I believe that I see more things as energy now, people, and thinking into results. Bob Proctor taught me that, just like, what is energy? What is the process? What is our mind? How do we make things what they are with the power of our mind? How do we think? How does that produce results in our lives? And what is duplicated in DNA through generations? So for me, it's like, as a masculine woman, I'm portraying more masculine traits. And I think this is where I can say that I had a phase in my life where I questioned my sexuality. Like, do I like girls? Do I like guys? Why am I attracted to this girl? Like, and now I see it as like, it wasn't that at all. I feel like I was attracted to not just women in general, but I would find myself attracted to a woman every now and then. And I was like, I don't know if this is right or wrong, because from what I'm told, this is very wrong. But it was like, I feel like my energy needed more femininity from a woman. And that was, I feel like absent as a child too. So I think it's super important. And this is where I feel like God's truth and what Christianity is doing to help people and kind of give them an understanding of how things work. Just like basic concepts of life is like, I think a child needs a good balance of masculine and feminine energy to like develop into, I guess, the ideal version of themselves. So I think that's kind of the crisis that we have now. We have broken families. We have men who are more feminine. We have women who are using masculine traits because as a defense mechanism. They don't want to, well, I'm not going to say every woman, but I think every woman deep down wants to be loved and wants to receive love. Feminine energy is the receiving energy, where masculine energy is the go out and get it and lead energy. And it's not just man, woman, it's just a masculine, feminine energy. And when little girls are being taught that they need to protect themselves and they need to be independent and they need to go out and get it, then they are becoming more masculine. And so they will reject more of a man who has masculine energy, who's going to take care of them. And maybe at some point in their life, they're going to realize, like, I don't want to be this like boss. Like, I want a boss. I want someone to lead me and to love me so that I can be a woman, a mother, like nurturing and receiving. And this has just been my personal experience, is like, if this is how I'm starting to see the world, and like where we should, I guess, put more energy into children. And I guess I'm kind of seeing like the gap, at least where, for me. I'm not really sure if that answered your guys' question or where I was going with this, but like, I feel like that's kind of, I feel like that's where people have a misunderstanding of themselves and who they are.
I love that.
I love it. And thank you. I'm really grateful, a little bit jealous, but really grateful that you guys got mentored by Bob Proctor and you've been able to bring so much wisdom from him through this
Facts.
conversation. That's dope. That's dope.
That's deep.
I have a controversial question to ask on top of that. Because I love the whole perspective you had of masculine and femininity and the world that we're living in today, and mentioning that a lot of children come from broken homes, and like I've experienced my different things with, with masculine role models in my life, and I've realized and having awakenings and certain realizations as an adult. I'm like, oh, wow, that's why I'm like that, because I was missing that, or, things like that. And then I think it's kind of a relevant topic and it's a controversial question, but on the subject of gender, masculinity, femininity, do you guys believe in gender roles?
Oh my God, dude, you literally read my mind. That was exactly where I was going next. Because that's so important, because it's like, at what line, where's the line, between masculine and feminine energy? Like, I understand it. And I think every human has both of that, right? We're all energy and we both have, some have more, some have more, right? But like, at what point are we crossing the line? You brought up, you're teaching women to be independent, and then like, what point, like, is it okay for a woman to say, like, no, I'm not gonna cook and clean, like, that's not the type of woman that I am, like. So this is great subject, bro. You literally read my mind. So I want to hear from you guys first before, like, we come in here.
Yeah, I got some bars.
So I can only speak honestly on obviously what I've experienced. So in a past relationship, we'll touch on this, I felt now looking back, being in something that feels right, back then it felt very wrong. And looking back, I realized I was so far in my masculine. I felt like I had to fend for myself. Everything was on my back. I was not very happy. The list goes on, honestly, just things did not feel right. And I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I wasn't being taken care of in the way that I needed to be taken care of. And for me, I realized later on, now being in something that feels healthy and what feels right, that I blossom and thrive best when I am able to be creative. And when I'm able to be creative, that means other things that are more masculine, that could be, I don't know, just like maybe finances, or, certain things like, I guess this isn't really masculine, but anyways, Jordan takes care of certain things, right? And that's what also puts me in the receiving mode, like where I can be creative, where I feel like I can blossom, like Taylor was saying. But in the past, though, I was never ever taken care of in those certain ways, and it was pushing me to be way too like imbalanced. And I guess in a way that would say, like, I don't know if it's gender or if it's just me wanting to be more feminine. Maybe some people feel like they are feminine but need to be more masculine, whatever feels right for that person. But I truly believe, like, there are roles that people play in relationships that are going to help them thrive the most. And I knew back then, emotionally, mentally, inside, something was off, and I just couldn't put my finger on what it was. But getting out of it and now putting myself into different situations where, Jordan will take care of this and I don't have to worry about this. Coda has been to the park. He's been throwing the ball with him all day. So I don't have to come home and rush and do this. I can cook, I can clean, I can provide for my man in the way that I want to provide for my man. And it does sound very traditional. And I've always said back in the day, like, I'm not a traditional person, blah, 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 this and that. And I'm like, actually now, like, later on in my life, after going through certain things, I've learned that I work best in more feminine energy, and I feel the best in my feminine energy. And I know Jordan can be his best in his masculine, and when he's taking care of me, and when he's leading or guiding or makes some decisions that I'm just like this, that, like just fucking take my hand and push me this way because this is where we should go type of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's my obvious viewpoint. But I truly think like there are roles that humans play, and some are more masculine and some are more feminine. There's just no other way of going about it. And it's interesting because I've noticed that, I won't even say who it is, but in a relationship of somebody's who we spent some time with recently, I said to Jordan, I was like, it's so weird because I feel like this woman is just the masculine of the relationship and he's more of the feminine. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I just said it's interesting. And whatever it might work for them, that's where they find their balance, and that is what it is. That's their relationship. But I know that there has to come to terms that there needs a balance in that where people can thrive, because when you're in balance, like you guys, you know that feeling, like things are just not right. We're not working the best that we can be. Like I'm not getting my shit done. You're not getting your shit done. There's just tension. Like you feel that energy. So yeah, I totally 100% think that there are roles that people but that people do play in order to work at their highest, for sure. For sure. And I've lived both aspects, saying saying I don't need it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, now this is what it means to be in that energy and to actually feel it. So I guess I can speak from both sides.
Quick comment before Taylor goes. It was like yesterday we were both kind of hangry in the morning, and I was like Angie, you just decide where we're gonna go. And like it was so funny because she got kind of frustrated with me. And it was a reminder of like, oh yeah, I'll just decide. I'll just get in the car and I'll go pick where we go. And then the problem was solved. And it was almost like, it's funny because you're saying like you've naturally found yourself wanting to be more feminine. I'm like, it's almost as if nature designed you to be that way. But go ahead, Taylor.
Yes, and that's where I want people to have more clarity with, the church. Like my faith has grown so much more with the information that I've learned, because the book of Genesis, the start of it all, if you ever question it, just like go back to basics. Life cannot be duplicated without a man and a woman, man and a woman. Like man and man can't make a baby. Woman and woman can't make a baby. So physically, biologically, life ends if they're the same.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where it's an abomination. It's not so much like morality, I guess, from my understanding and what I've developed. It's not so much like, oh, you're gross, you're bad because you like the same sex. No, it's life literally cannot be duplicated from the two of you. So it's physically like not possible. Now, scientifically, yes, you can plant the baby with all this stuff that they're coming up with, but it's like, go back to basics. Man and woman make life. And so naturally a baby is born into an environment where habits and behaviors and personalities come into play. So now it's like, okay, is the little boy raised with more of a feminine energy? Is the little girl raised with more masculine energy? And I think that's where we all kind of come to an understanding later on in life, like where we kind of serve better. And as a woman now, I'm also realizing like I feel so much better. I apply myself so much better when I can be a full-blown woman and mom and a wife like that. I love when my man leads and he has a vision and I can support him and I can help organize it and I can help be of support. That's where I feel more enhanced. And with anything, with the podcast, with my team, with my organization, but more importantly with my family, like that's where I feel like I serve better. And that's what we're all here to do. God's will is to come here, be fruitful, duplicate, and provide service to everybody that we come across to make the world a better place. Like if you ever question it, just go back to basics. Like we're here to duplicate and make the world better than when we first got here. So that's kind of where I'm going to leave it at.
I love that. I love that. I've never thought about it in that aspect of like, what is all the goal of all life in all forms, even the single cell? What is its goal? Duplicate.
Okay.
And so, yeah, like I said, I have no opinion of like, dude, you love whoever you want to love. But like, that's a very interesting point of like, if you're gonna make certain decisions, there's consequences to your decisions, and consequence of that decision is the ending of life or the ending of the continuation of the life. You
Have
know?
you ever seen the movie Lucy? And it explains in that movie that like a cell, well, your brain, right? Like we only use X amount of our brain, right? But every
Oh,
cell
yeah,
has to either one of two things, has to either duplicate, or it just becomes so like constrained in of itself that it just dies, like
it
it's
dies.
over.
Yeah.
So if you can't duplicate, it dies.
And another interesting point too, I think you can look back at a lot of I'm a huge fan of history. You look back at a lot of societies that we paint as examples of how not to be, including Nazi Germany. And you can see lots of examples of what we're talking about, with transgenderism and homophobia or home like these kind of things where it's like those kind of cultures almost promoted it and turned it into propaganda. And it's like, why is that like can be used as like a government thing or a propaganda thing and a media thing of like, let's suggest this, right? Like what's the consequence of that? And I think Taylor pointed it out. It's the consequence is the ending of life. It's the ending of procreation. It's the ending of spreading upon your value to your, like, that's the whole point of having kids, right? Is like you've had this experience of life. You've accumulated this information, this wisdom, this energy and experience, and you can pass it along, therefore, to make the world a better place by giving your input. And that's what I think I want to do in this world. I respect everyone's opinion whether you want to do that or not. But my whole 2 cents on the gender role thing is like 100%. There are gender roles. You know why? And my freaking hammer, the punchline to that. You want to send our women to war? Absolutely not. And if you say
Badass
yes,
woman,
then
bro.
I mean, yeah, of course there are some badass women, but generally speaking, when that comes to this thing, who's going to go up to fight? It's the man,
Yeah.
right?
Take care of the kids back home.
And exactly, who's gonna take care of the kids at home? Like that ain't my strength. That ain't my forte. Like with me and Angie's relationship, I was touched by your words, Angie. Thank you. I feel the same way because I'm able to go do shit. I'm able to make decisions. I'm able to say, hey, let's move here. Let's do this. And she supports me. And I'm able to like, take control, make decisions while I know that things at home are taken care of. Like Angie takes care of me as much as I take care of her. Like, and I feel so supported. I've never like been more grateful for where I'm at in my life because I have a woman at home who cooks for me, who cleans for me, who does that shit. And I've never had that. I don't need that. I can do that stuff myself, but it allows me to do the other things that I want to do more of, and it's like, I do believe in gender roles, and it doesn't have to be the traditional, like, I go out, make the money, and stays home, takes care of the kids, and cooks and cleans. That's just kind of how it happens to be for us, but like that doesn't have to be that for everybody else. And I don't believe in that sort of traditional, like the woman has to be at home cooking and cleaning, and like the man goes out and gets it. Like Angie's a savage trader. She's destroying. She's got an FTMO account, managing 100 bands. Like that's B. She's taking care of it in that way too. So it's like I think there's a balance that can be struck between a man and a woman. But I also definitely believe that yeah, women are better at certain things. I am better at certain things than she is. She's better at certain things than I am. That's just the natural design of the world. Like, why am I stronger physically than a woman? Because I'm a man. And so in order to like, I'm going to use my physical strengths, the things that God gave me in the pursuit of creating life, of spreading awareness, of continuing life and providing value to the world. So yeah, 100% I believe gender roles, because if you don't, and you want to send your mom or your sister to war, like, not gonna lie, I'm a savage. I give my opinion blunt. That's fucked up, bro.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jordan. I think that there's I grew up in a household like where my dad, and this is very common in the Mexican culture, where like the dad goes out and gets it, the mom stays home and cooks and cleans, right? But it's almost too, like, the roles are almost too strong, where like my dad, like, I remember, obviously he's not like this now, but like I remember before he had like this epiphany, right, is like my dad would like demand that there would be food, at the table when he got home, and that the food would be warm, and like, he would demand like laundry to be done and the house to be clean and shit like that, and like growing up, I was like, dude, like that's not the type of, well, I had to get rid of the stigmas that were in my brain. And you mentioned something earlier, like, oh yeah, that's the way I am, right? Like, growing up, I would like the way in like my earlier relationships, I would like demand certain things of like my girlfriends, of like the demand them to act a certain way, and I would get pissed that they wouldn't. And I realized that it was because of that subconscious programming that I had. So like I agree in gender roles. I agree like everything that you guys are having 100%. I think that there is a level of awareness that somebody needs to have before it gets too demanding, of it. Because for example, like, you know, I hate doing laundry. I've had girlfriends that do my laundry, but then it's like going back and doing my laundry. It's like, damn, there's one time where I was like, my shit's not clean. Like, what the fuck, and like that created tension, because it was like a demand, like, bro, you can do your own laundry. And I knew that I could do my own laundry. I just expected it. You know what I mean? And like, it was that demand, that like that trigger, which is what we talked about in when we did our episodes on relationships, Jordan, where it was like that trigger. It was like that trigger in both of us, right? Like she was triggered because like, bro, who are you to tell me, like I'm doing you a favor by doing your dirty ass laundry, and you over here demanding me to do it. So I agree that there is roles. For example, both of these women agreed that they feel at best, when they're expressing creativity through being a woman. So do we. Like, dude, I've been doing shit around the house. I feel like more manly. I'm like, yeah, let me do some more stuff. So it's like, I understand that. And it's not something like I would expect a woman to do, like you're not going to go expect a woman to fix a car or change her own tires and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like there has to be a certain control, because I grew up in the culture that I come from. There is a very much a very strong demand on gender roles. Like, they even teach little girls to like cook by the time they're like 12, 13, so that if the mom is out working, guess what? The girl, the youngest or the oldest is at home, making sure that when dad's home, like there's food on the table. And that's not the type of like roles I want to, continue. And I want to kind of break that culture, because it's wrong. It's demeaning towards women, and um it's just wrong. Like, I just like, you're treating people, you're not treating people as. And then what happens is you're keeping people constrained where they have to obey by these goals, and then you never let them express themselves. So what happens is then it just kind of creates toxic relationships between people. And then we start getting into just like a whole different rabbit hole of what happens in life if you're not taught certain values, right? So like certain respect. So I think that like a woman does have to be quote unquote independent to an extent, like she's got to be able to not be with some fuck boy that's not going to take care of her. Like, she got to be able to take care of herself. However, like she also has to be able to nurture, you know what I mean? Because that is like a something that I want to say expect, that would be something that
That's
I
her
would
strength.
want. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like as a man, I would want a nurturing woman. You know what I mean? So like, that's kind of like my 2 cents on that now. So that's good. I'm glad we're all kind of on the same page here. Nobody's gonna throw fists. Nobody's gonna throw hands.
I wanted to add on that. I think you like with that whole aspect of like demanding from a woman, and in my experience, I found that like if I'm taking care of my shit, I don't have to ask.
Right.
I don't have to ask for Angie to do anything. She'll do it. She wants to do it. And the same for her. Like,
Ooh,
like
that's important.
as a man, if a woman demands certain things of you, like, wait, I'm wired. Anybody demands anything of me,
Yeah.
like, two, give them two, So it's like, but when you find that harmony and you actually find the flow of like that balance, it's like, it's natural. It's natural for me to want to like take care of shit. It's natural for me to want to go make plans, make sure shit's taken care of, plan ahead for the future, plan for our family. Like, that's natural.
Yeah. That's
You
good.
guys both brought like a point of reflection to me. Mondo, when you were talking about like family dynamics and like with your parents and stuff, I was thinking, I'm like, oh my God. So I was so anti like roles for a while. And I'm thinking back, like when my parents got divorced, so my mom was always cooking, cleaning, like traditional, whatever. Like my dad's hardcore Greek family, like I'm surprised my mom had a job, to be honest. But that's besides the fact, but I saw that growing up, that's what my mom's role was, and whatever the case may be. Maybe I just didn't see what is the word? I guess the appreciation side of it, like
Yeah.
the gratitude with it. And I noticed when my parents got divorced, my role, like you were saying with that 12-year-old girl, I felt that I needed to cook and clean, take care of my dad, because it was just me and my dad at that point. And I felt myself like, oh my God, like I literally would work late and be like, do you want me to pick something up? Like, or are you making dinner? Like, should I figure this out? Like type of shit. And I'm like wondering, I'm like, that's probably why I was so anti that for a while, because I didn't see the balance with it. It was just like, it was expected. I felt like this was my duty. And like what Jordan was saying, like when you feel like it's your duty and you have to do it, you don't want to fucking do it, right? So that's how I always kind of saw it and viewed it until, like I said, life experiences happened. And now I feel like I'm in that balanced relationship and role where it's like, okay, yes, like, no, this is genuinely what I want to do. But it's just, I want to do it because they're doing this for me. So it's it's a positive transactional thing. Like, I don't want to use the word transactional because I feel like that takes the importance out of it in a way, and just the positive energy with it. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Interesting.
One question that I want to kind of finish things off with here is, do you guys still think, and this I'm glad that we have two entrepreneurial minded women on here, because this subject hits home for a lot of women. Do you guys still think that women are undervalued in the marketplace monetarily? Like if a woman wanted to go out and work and they want to apply for the same position as a man, like a woman executive versus a man executive, do you think that they are still underpaid and undervalued just because of their sex, like feminine?
Sorry, I'm getting fed a cookie.
What's up, Michael?
Personally, from what I've learned, and I think this is where this has kind of taken the veil off of whether you're a man or a woman or a child, or like, we're all human. And the basic laws that govern everything and what earning income is. It's how much energy do you exert. So Bob taught me that the law of compensation is your ability to do something, the need for it, and how difficult it is to replace you. So this is where I feel like if a woman has an understanding, or not even a woman, but because of the question, if somebody knows their value, it doesn't matter whether or not, like, if they're not valued at that place, if they give it their all, they will be rewarded for it somewhere else. There will be somebody waiting at the door to give you exactly, to meet that transactional energy. So I won't even put that on women that they are undervalued. I will say that a human is valued, and if they have an understanding of what they give, they will get that in return at a workplace, in a relationship. So I think this is where we as a culture, as humans, need to have an understanding of that right there. When we stop victimizing ourselves, as a woman, I'm not going to sit here and tell women, you're a victim to this and this and this. No, you're not. Like, we're here to empower people and encourage more of what they are. So I want to help a woman understand where she provides more value, so that she never feels as a victim, like, oh, I don't get paid as much as I'm worth. Well, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to go somewhere else where you're valued? Like, come on now, you're not a victim. And this is with anybody, man or woman. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Love
Thank
that
you,
answer.
Taylor, for bringing up the whole victim aspect of it, because
Jordan loves that.
I love that shit, dude.
Facts. I feel like kind of going back to gender roles, like if you were to look at numbers and how many male CEOs there may be, it could look off skewed. But to bring it back, certain people are good at certain things better than others. And that's just the fact. That's just how life is. Some people are better at doing this than that. A male might be better at doing a certain thing that has to do with physical abilities than a woman. That's just the way that nature is intended and how it could be. And if you want to actually get better at something, then you put your energy into that and you get better at it. And statistics will show you improve. And that's just kind of the way that life goes. And yeah, I just exactly to go along with what Taylor was saying, I feel the same way. Like you have strengths, follow your strengths and know that you're worthy and you have value and find where you can fit perfectly or lead or just give them what you have to show and provide value. And life is just gonna, give you it right back. Like exactly where you're worthy is like, you got to find your fit. So you just can't stay in one spot if you feel like you're not being paid what you should. Obviously, like it comes down to like you are the person that's choosing to show up to this job every single day. So if you're choosing that every single day, you also have the choice to not do that or find another path and find where you fit best. And obviously that you have strengths just like any other human being does. And you just got to follow those and figure out where that works best.
I love that. I think whether it's, the choice of life or the choice of how much you're getting paid, it's I guess the conclusion to our conversation, man, and kind of like sum everything up is it all just comes down to your own worth. It really comes down to like who you are, how you value yourself, your own opinions, and not giving a fuck. Excuse me, there's a baby right there. Not giving any opinion towards anything or anybody else, So I think that's good. I love that you guys both kind of answered that same way because I was hoping that you would actually, because I think that it's big, like whether it's a man or a woman, like, dude, law of compensation is just that, like you can get paid and you are worth as much as you personally think that you are worth. It has nothing to do with who you are, where you live, or where you come from, because if it was to that, I'd be a statistic, I wouldn't have the conversations that I'm having with Jordan, wouldn't be able to do the things that we're doing now. So I think that's so big for people, and women are obviously right. This whole kind of episode was more mainly focused on just women, but like women not being victims of the things that previously were victims of, actually, right? Because now it's not, we're past that. Like now there's actual rights legally, and people are involved mentally, and there's laws and stuff like that to protect certain things from happening. So I think that there is now just understanding the power that we have within each other, humans and people, not just men and women, and then just being able to make decisions, I think is a big skill to have.
Thanks.
Like choosing where you're going to go to breakfast. It's a big skill.
It is a skill. It is a skill. And I agree. I agree to bring in more meta. I think it's insane. We talk about a lot of these things like certain trends, certain norms, and like we bring up statistics, and I love Taylor's aspect, like the whole victim thing, because you can either be a part of the statistic and continue the norm and accept that that's your destiny, because guess what? Life is unfair. Life is painful. Shit happens. It happens to us all. Suffering, misery isn't something that's reserved for the poor. It happens to every single one of us. And there's a huge difference. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional.
Facts.
So if you choose to cling on to the fact that you're disenfranchised because of this, because you're a woman, because you're of a color, because you're of race, whatever it may be, because you're gay, because you're transgender, if you allow those things to define your outcome, you're giving away your power. You're giving away your ability to actually create the life you want to create. So I'm a firm believer of individualism. Once you realize your own power and your ability of your choices to influence your life, and you don't give that power away to the system, to the man, to anybody, that's when life actually gets good.
That's a bar. Facts. Sheesh. Awesome. Well, ladies, do you guys have anything that you want to just say, or any thoughts, final thoughts before we kind of wrap things up on just anything really.
I'm just grateful to be here. Thanks for asking me for my opinion and picking my brain.
Thanks for being on.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. And I would like to leave this with is I just pray that people have a better understanding of themselves so that they can be of contribution to groups of people, whether it's that it's our entire culture, the organization that they're in, their relationships, just people have a better understanding of themselves so that they can be of better contribution to others around them. So thank you guys so much that just being here is in alignment with my vision and what I want to accomplish. So I really appreciate you guys for just inviting me and letting me be here.
Thank you, ladies, for being on. Guys, reminder, this podcast is not free. If you found any value today, right? You found any value, you enjoyed this whatsoever. Again, the podcast is not free. You can either send me or Mondo $1,000 or you can just share it. Share it with somebody, share it with someone you know that needs to hear this conversation. That's the price of this podcast. That's the price of the value that we bring. Thank you, ladies, for providing the value. I'm sure people will be more than inclined to share with people because I got a lot of value out of this conversation. Again, thanks for being here, ladies.
Yeah, for real, for real. Thank you guys. I appreciate you much. Thank you for your opinion. Definitely picked up a thing or two as far as parenting and just different ideas and things like that. So I appreciate you guys. Much love to you guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will catch you guys on another episode.
Peace.